Meridian and Let He Who Is Without Sin are the two lowest rated episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I love both of them.
It's unbelievable.
It's very difficult for me to hate just about any episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, to dislike it, for me to think of something as the worst. I had a list of the worst episodes of Deep Space Nine, but to be honest, most episodes of Deep Space Nine I love, even if they're bad, even if other people hate them. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, as anyone who knows me will tell you, is my favorite series of all time. I show The Visitor in my Introduction to Theater class as an example of good drama. So when I say that I hate an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, that means something. And it means something very, very bad. I did not take notes while I watched this episode of Deep Space Nine. I took notes later when I was putting my list of questions together for these, but I did not take notes while I was watching what I consider to be the worst episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Valiant.
I don't remember anyone inviting you to the bridge.
I hate Valiant.
We're Red Squad, and we can do anything.
What happens in Valiant? Valiant is about a bunch of college students who play Starship, and they all lose their lives because they're stupid.
Captain Waters was a great man.
Dorian, he got everyone killed.
I don't like Valiant.
I can't believe you're buying everything that Waters is selling.
Why is this episode the worst? Because everyone in Valiant is an idiot and nobody learns anything.
It was a good ship. With a good crew.
Nog doesn't realize that he outranks everyone on the ship and lets them imprison his best friend so he can play chief engineer.
Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, this would be my new rank. Lieutenant Commander Nog, Chief Engineer.
Waters, not a captain, just a cadet.
We have cadets here as young as 17 who are doing the job of officers twice their age.
Waters is overconfident, cocky, and completely ineffective as a commander because he couldn't tell someone to warp away at the end.
But in the end, he was a bad captain.
Nog calls Waters a bad captain. But Waters is not a captain. He's a cadet, pretending that he's a captain.
I'm not sure we can trust him.
Karen is ordered to keep tabs on Jake, but then she doesn't. She doesn't do anything about her ODing CO either. Jake doesn't learn anything. He was right from the beginning and he's right at the end.
Even with the entire crew of the Defiant with him, my father would never try to pull off something like this.
For some reason, he thinks he can convince these beer-swilling militants to be responsible. And because of that, they lock him up. They tell him not to talk to Dorian, and he does, so he's stupid too.
It's unbelievable.
What is the purpose of Valiant? Why does Valiant exist? I don't know. The only thing that I can think is that it wraps up the loose end of Red Squad by killing them all.
They're all dead.
That's it. There's no bigger piece to the Dominion story here. The Dominion's building a new kind of battleship. And at the end, yeah, the battleship's tough. It destroys the Valiant. Yeah. What is the worst moment in Valiant? There are so many. I will limit myself to 2. Number 1, the most inappropriately toned montage in Star Trek history. Number 2, the ending. Dorian still doesn't get it.
If he failed, it's because we failed him.
Nog still doesn't get it.
He may have been a hero. He may even have been a great man.
Everyone is stupid and no one learns anything. This episode reminds me of an episode of Battlestar Galactica called Scar. That episode suffers from the same problems that this one does. There's an ODing pilot who is strung out on drugs, and she ends up getting just herself killed due to the radiation by trying to be a hero. She doesn't drive everyone to their doom, I guess, so it's a better version of this episode. But I think a lot of episodes of Battlestar Galactica are just rehashed episodes of Deep Space Nine because they were kind of already well put together.
It's unbelievable.
That's for a different video. Okay, I'll give you one quick example. In Things Past, the Bajoran resistance on the station turns the thing upside down as the symbol for when they want to meet with the resistance in whatever the season 3 opening is, where they're on the planet.
The yellow dog bowl was a signal. It meant there was a message in the garbage dump.
They turn the dog bowl. They flip the dog bowl upside down when they want to contact the resistance. Yeah, original, right?
It's unbelievable.
It's not just Deep Space Nine rewritten. No. Changelings and Cylons, those are different, right? Are there any funny moments in Valiant? I laugh every single time that Waters gives his stupid speech and Jake tries to explain that they shouldn't do what they're going to do because it's going to get them all killed. And Waters says, "We're Red Squad and we can do anything." And Nog has drank the Kool-Aid, and so when everybody chants Red Squad, Nog chants Red Squad too, because he just really wanted to be a part of Red Squad, even though, again, he was a real engineer on a real ship that outranked all of these people and at any time could have put a stupid stop to this mess. I don't like Valiant. I laugh any time a member of Red Squad pretends to be something they're not. Captain, executive officer, chief engineer. Does Valiant have any redeeming qualities? Yes.
Take a city.
Oh, a lunar schooner.
This is a hard one because so far we have not talked about redeeming qualities in these bad episodes of Star Trek, but Valiant actually has some redeeming qualities.
Of course, he still calls Luna the moon, like it's the only one or something.
Dorian's story about the moon is very nice, and she gives some good emotion in this scene.
You know, the sun only comes up once a month on the moon.
And her response to thinking about home shows the toll that this mission is taking on these cadets. They should go home.
And Starfleet knows you're in command of the Valiant.
It's nice that Jake is a moral compass. He's just trapped in a frat house.
Yeah, that's about it. What's going on?
I like the Red Squad concept, the idea of letting cadets run a ship. That's all I have to say about Valiant. Valiant is stupid. Now I'm done. Bad actors, plus bad camera angles, plus Brannon Braga, plus Nevok equals Rise.
I don't think I can do it.
Rise is the worst episode in Voyager.
Allowing anxiety to overcome you will only hinder the efficiency of our efforts.
The first time that I watched Rise, I was bored out of my mind. What happens in Rise is a 46-minute episode about an elevator ride. That's it. Neelix and Tuvok take an elevator ride to Voyager. They make it. The end.
Something tells me you just hate to lose an argument.
By this point in the series, they're not going to get rid of Neelix and they're not going to get rid of Tuvok, so we know that they're going to make it to the top. If they didn't get rid of Neelix and Tuvok in Tuvix, then they're not going to get rid of them now.
I can barely keep my eyes open.
This episode was sort of an entire episode's version of the pod race in Star Wars Episode 1.
Hang on!
I always thought that the pod race was the most boring sequence in film history, because if Anakin doesn't win, what do?
Our probability of being detected by Voyager or the other rescue teams is greatest if we remain here.
What if they don't find us in time?
So there's no drama. No matter what happens, no matter how many pod racers or whatever they're called, no matter how many of those things smash into each other and explode, Anakin has to win the pod race in order to keep the story going. Neelix and Tuvok have to make it to the top in Rise. They've got to get there. So it started from a very bad place.
What happened?
I'm not sure.
This is a fun episode. This is fun to talk about.
And I've discovered disturbing evidence.
Why is Rise the worst episode of Voyager?
And it means we're not leaving you now.
Rise is emblematic of most bad episodes of Voyager. It contains an unnecessary twist, a crew that always acts bored, regardless of circumstance, stilted dialogue between main characters, a lifeless and stiff Captain Janeway.
Adjust our phasers to match. Target their primary reactor.
Bad guest actors.
How long until the next asteroid hits?
And quick resolutions of last-minute conflicts.
Shields down to 23%. Structural integrity is failing.
Captain, this data device contains tactical information about the enemy vessel. Their reactor is offline.
In fact, this episode itself really doesn't have any stakes, conflict, or drama to speak of.
I've got a funny feeling about this.
In a way, there's just too much going on in Rise. I tried to put together a list of all the different things that happen in Rise that are important in the episode. Important? And I came up with 8. There's a rescue mission, a scientific discovery, murder on the elevator, a traitor, multiple sky-high fights, mysterious aliens, Tuvok Neelix interaction, never good and never ends well, and a quick resolution at the end. It's just too much to have in one episode. In a 46-minute episode of television, you've got 8 items that just doesn't give enough time for anything to develop and occur.
I'm not interested in your funny feeling.
Many episodes of Voyager have too many things going on, and this is the prime example of that issue in Star Trek Voyager.
You're not listening to what I'm saying.
What is the worst moment in Rise? The worst moment in Rise is Tuvok hanging onto the elevator and playing outside the elevator when they're thousands of feet in the air. Well, really, there are 2. The other worst moment of the episode is at the very end when Neelix has to re-explain the episode to us.
The people who attacked your colonies, they call themselves the Itanian Order.
The episode was bad enough. I don't need to relive it. And Neelix makes me relive it. And I don't like Neelix.
The truth is you're filled with contempt and sarcasm, and I'm tired of being the target of all your hostility.
I wrote down, Brannon Braga is most proud of Voyager. I would be embarrassed. That sounds harsh.
That is no justification for murder.
Are there any funny moments in Rise? Absolutely. Rise is worth watching for minutes 34 and 38, which, if you have access to it on Netflix or Hulu or Paramount Plus, you should definitely watch the fight scenes that occur in Rise. It looks like they couldn't hire stuntmen? I don't know. They just did what they could with the actors that were there, and the fight looks terrible. And I really want to compare this fight with one from a similarly rated episode of Deep Space Nine on IMDb.
I really think you should see this, sir.
So on IMDb, Rise is the 135th ranked episode of Star Trek Voyager. On Deep Space Nine, Dramatis Personae is the 132nd ranked episode. Both of these episodes are ranked at about the same spot, and they both contain a fight scene. However, the fight scene on Deep Space Nine looks absolutely awesome. Sisko beats the snot out of this Bajoran guy, and then he knocks him over this railing, and then he jumps over the railing himself, and he keeps going at him. It's awesome.
I want the truth. Is that clear?
The Voyager fight is not as good. Tuvok is on top of the big elevator, and first he gets thrown off, and it looks hilarious. And then later they're inside, and Tuvok has to come back in and kick the bad guy out the door. And then the graphic is one of the worst. Voyager does this kind of crap all the time. And this episode, Rise, contains one of the most egregious uses of cheap effects. Another fun moment is a sudden murder mystery 30 minutes into the episode. 30 minutes in, a guy dies and they have to figure out who killed him. It's a whodunit in an episode where there wasn't going to be a whodunit. It's just about an elevator ride up a carriage that goes up into space. And now we've got a murder mystery.
He's dead.
All the dialogue in this episode is terrible. It's hilarious. Janeway says,
"In for a penny, in for a pound."
Excuse me?
She forgets that in Star Trek, races in the Delta Quadrant are not familiar with human idioms.
It's a human expression, Ambassador.
Janeway's a human idiom. I don't like Janeway either. I like Janeway about as much as I like Valiant.
It's unbelievable.
Does Rise contain any redeeming qualities? Yes. Neelix names the carriage after his sister Elixia. He tells a nice story about his sister, and he names the carriage after her. It's actually kind of a nice moment. I don't know why he told the story.
Elixia.
Elixia.
My favorite sister. She was always taking me out to explore.
It would have been nice if the story that he tells about her was connected to why he names the carriage after her. Like, it would have been nice if when Neelix was building these model carriages...
All right, they were models. 1/10 scale, but they were extremely detailed.
If his sister helped him out, or maybe found pieces that he lost, or protected them from being damaged by somebody else.
She showed me the caves of Tauth.
It's kind of a nice moment. It would have been nice if it had been connected. I will say that Tuvok and Neelix, I don't really like any episode that features them. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to do a Spock, McCoy, different worlds, different philosophies, different ideologies going against one another. It doesn't go well. It's forced.
Your attempts have yet to succeed.
You always have to get in that last word, don't you?
I am simply responding to your erroneous statement.
They hired the worst guest actor in Star Trek in Rise. He's pretty bad. So that's something.
I'm an exogeologist. I prefer working on the ground.
So, anyways, that's Rise.
Try to restrain your enthusiasm.
Sometimes I wonder if good directors move a camera around because nothing is moving story-wise.
I've always envied those who had that facility.
My pick for the worst episode of Enterprise is Exile from season 3.
I tend to keep too much bottled up inside.
So what happens in Exile? Well, an alien attempts to convince Hoshi to forego a life of adventure and exploration with her friends to live with him forever as his unwilling concubine in his dimly lit castle built into a mountain.
No one will ever understand you the way I can.
Why is Exile the worst? I don't know why the writers thought that this concept would work. It really suffers from having a bad concept.
This is great, but I am pretty tired.
It's about a little alien who thinks that he's going to recruit a forever companion.
Do you really expect me to spend the rest of my life on a desolate world with someone that I have known for less than 2 days?
Because he thinks that she's as lonely as he is. But all she really wants to do is go back to the Enterprise and be with her friends.
I'm eager to get back to Enterprise.
Exile is awful. It's the worst.
You have certainly done your homework.
So why does Exile occur? What was the purpose of Exile? Many episodes of Season 3 of Enterprise are an attempt to fill time in a season-long arc that was too long and too laborious for an entire season of television.
Assuming there is a second sphere, how far away is it?
Many episodes desperately attempt to fill a season-long arc that didn't require a full season, and this is the most mediocre example of those kinds of desperate attempts.
A third sphere?
This episode is a desperate attempt to fill time in the third season.
What the hell's going on?
What is the worst moment in Exile? Well, the whole of the Enterprise comes apart, and Enterprise graphics are always the worst. I complained a little bit about Voyager graphics, but Enterprise graphics, gosh, they're always worse. In Stigma, one of my favorite episodes of Enterprise, Stigma contains probably the most egregious CGI in Star Trek history. I don't know why anyone thought that that would be okay. It's deplorable. The subplot? Archer and Trip take a shuttle to this planet, and then they're, again, desperate to make some kind of drama, and so the shuttle just sort of lifts off the planet, and they shoot at it, and it comes barreling toward the planet. It's a very weird sequence.
It's unbelievable.
Probably the real worst moment in the episode. Linda Park is obviously a very attractive young woman. And so her character, Hoshi Sato, probably wants to appear attractive. But why would she want to appear attractive here? Why would she wear this dress on this planet with this weird guy who has spent months getting inside of her head?
Feel free to return. If you'd like some company.
Thanks.
Does Exile contain any redeeming qualities? No, there are no redeeming qualities in this episode. I think Hoshi is an underutilized character. I think Linda Park was underutilized throughout the entire series.
I assume you told him that wouldn't be possible.
Episodes like this, they don't help the case for Hoshi Sato. She was underutilized, and in the episodes in which she was utilized, she was given material like this. So,
You're a regular mind reader.
are there any fun or funny moments in Exile? No.
The interference patterns implied another wave source.
They certainly did not need an entire season to tell the Xindi story arc.
I have learned a great deal about the Xindi weapon. I'm sure he'll find the information useful.
The closest thing to a fun moment is when the alien attempts to convince Hoshi that he can wear her down until she eventually succumbs to his advances.
But over time, they came to appreciate what I had to offer them.
A major thing that happens in Exile. Are we supposed to be impressed by doors opening by themselves in this castle? Because this happens all the time in Star Trek. It's time for me to pick the best episode of the worst episodes of each series of Star Trek. And I have to say, as much as I ragged on Voyager earlier, I think Rise is the best of these 5 episodes. Yes, there's too much going on, but it doesn't really drag. The plot kind of moves about. And, you know, the fight scenes on top of the elevator and the fight scene in the elevator where they kick the guy out, I mean, they're fun. They're funny. They're going to make you laugh because they're just that terrible. It's a terrible episode of any kind of television. But, you know, out of these 5, yeah, I think it's the best. Valiant might be number 2, but I hate it so much. It's so stupid. All the characters are dumb, and at least in this one, somebody learned something. So I gotta go with Rise. As for the worst, I fully expected Catspaw to be the worst episode. And Catspaw is not a good episode. It is atrocious in so many ways. Catspaw is awful. It makes me... It makes me laugh to think about the blue little puppets. But it's a bad episode. Exile's worse.
Fascinating.
Exile is just the worst episode of Star Trek that there could possibly be. I cannot in my mind imagine a worse episode.
You're a regular mind reader.
Exile is like the titular character. Exile is carved in a mountainside all on its own. And it deserves to stay there. And if you want to remove an episode of Star Trek, it should probably be Exile, because it is just the worst.
Alone.
So, those are the worst single episodes from each series, according to me. And I think that Rise is the best of the worst. Probably next is Valiant, Unnatural Selection, Catspaw, and then finally Exile, which just... I love Star Trek. I watch Star Trek all the time.
I, too, am at a loss at this time to suggest the course of action.
I do not think I can ever watch Exile again.
It's unbelievable.
And that's saying something. This is Rodney, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully under better circumstances.